Hello, everyone. The fifth session for our apps and PVA track for today is Try Gabber from Fusion 5, and he will be presenting about the AI Builder and Power Virtual Agent and why you need to have them in your Power Platform toolkits. Over to you, Try.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to, I think it's stage one of the afternoon shift, the late shift. Luckily, we've got some terrible weather in Auckland, so if you're in Auckland, you're at home instead of walking in the rain. Today's session will be an hour long. We're going to do a bit of demos in the session as well, so it's not going to be all talking. And the idea is to go through the AI Builder and Power Virtual Agent capabilities in part of our Power Platform. From a topic we'll cover, no specific order. We'll have a look at what the tools are and what they do, so a bit of an introduction. This is like very much like a Microsoft Level 200 session with a little bit of context around what the tooling is, where it fits in. We'll look at how to integrate into the ecosystem, more from a demo perspective. Look at some of the licensing options, so how you actually get the tools, which is something which sometimes can be a little bit of a dark art. And we'll look at some of the value adds and why it actually is important to have these tools as part of your larger system when it comes to building solutions in the Power Platform. So this is a very familiar picture. You've probably seen this 4 or 5 times today already. We're all used to it. What tends to happen when we get to using the tools that are part of the Power Platform, we tend to stick to those two over there and a little bit of that over there, and definitely using connectors. Power BI, we'll leave that to the BI guys. And the AI Builder and Power Virtual Agent are always there, but they don't always come to mind first when we're actually building solutions. 2 primary reasons. We did a bit of a survey with our customers saying, well, why aren't you using Power Virtual Agent? Why isn't AI Builder something that you're looking at? And the typical responses are,
what do you want to do?
I just finished. I just opened my eye.
Somebody's on mute. Okay, cool. We'll carry on. Typical responses we get with those is, one, I don't know what the tools do. So there's no visibility of what the capability of AI Build Power Virtual Agent is. And 2, well, it's an extra cost. I already have an E3, E5 license, and I hear it's going to cost me a lot more money. So I don't really want to look at that right now. They keep it quite simple. Let's build what we have. So we'll try and dispel a couple of those myths and go through what you can actually do, where it fits into AI ecosystem from application builders and solution builders are, and how it fits into the customer's picture as well. Cool. Let's move on to looking at that in a bit more detail. So what can we do with AI Builder? So effectively, you can leverage all the learning that's been available in Azure AI services for as long as you've been around. Everything that has been Microsoft have done with Azure AI services that their customers have done, all the services that built, specifically the ones you see on screen now, like cognitive services, machine learning, search, etc., are all available and have been packaged as pre-built solutions or pre-built capabilities and made available to us through the AI Builder capabilities in Power Platform. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail, but think about if you have something that Microsoft has spent literally years building up around cognitive services, say, for instance, image recognition. They have terabytes of data of images. They have enough metadata. They've got billions and billions of images in their system that they've learned to identify. And instead of you going out and building a whole new AI service to recognize the difference between a cow and a sheep, you can leverage all the capability they've built already. And to leverage it is very much a no-code environment. It's a very simple click and connect experience made available to you to use straight away inside any of the business processes you want to run with. As mentioned, it's a point-and-click AI solutions. So once we go through demo, you'll see once you've decided which AI module is going to work best for the solution you're building, be it something object recognition or text recognition, and you invoke that object or that model, you can then build that up and then train it through a very click simple interface, and we'll do the forms demo one in a moment, where I can, for instance, upload a form and I go and click and drag around the areas I want the AI service identify and provide me the data back. It's a no-code experience. You don't write any code at any time when it comes to actually building up the AI model. You can leverage what's there. Once we're deep into building a Power App or building a Power Automate to use the model, which is something we'll look at today as well, there we can start playing around with a bit of a code-based solution, see where we can bring some code or functionality into. But to actually get the model running and working is very much a point-click, no-code experience. And that's what makes it really easy to actually build very rapidly solutions that high value and actually do a lot of things like reduce cost and time. It integrates into Power Apps, Power Automate, and Dataverse natively. So all those applications that we are used to building solutions with, like Power Automate, Power Apps, etc., are able to leverage the AI Builder capabilities. In some cases, they will be embedded. So, for instance, in Power Apps, if you're a Power Apps Canvas Apps builder, you'll have already seen the AI Builder capabilities. Most times we don't go and touch them. I'm going to click too far because they have these wonderful little diamonds that tell us it's going to cost us money. And this is one of the barriers to entry where we tend to not go there because, hey, I don't have that license. So that's available through Power Apps. Inside of Power Automate, you have an AI Builder activity where you can basically have triggers as well as actions, and we'll go through those in the demo. And from a Dataverse perspective, there are some AI Builder functions that are only available if you have Dataverse running. We won't be touching on those today, but there are certain AI Builder capabilities such as sentiment recognition around customer data that uses Dynamics tables. So when you get customer feedback, say from voice of the customer, it will look at the customer's feedback, run sentiment analysis, do things like extraction of key terms, but it only does that against Dataverse. You can't go and do that if you don't have Dataverse in play. So that's something to consider when you're actually looking at models, is what the data backend is. Most of the time, it'll be whatever you want it to be, but it is worth having a look at where that fits in. And recently announced at Ignite, very soon you'll be able to import your own data models. So if you're using Azure AI to build data models in Azure AI and you've got a model up and running and you specifically train that for your environment and for your needs, and you don't want to go and you don't want to leverage that inside of Power Apps or inside of Power Automate, you can actually bring that model in. The one proviso right now is that it has to be an Azure AI data model. There are a couple of other small tick boxes that you checked off. I would highly recommend, if you are looking at doing something like that, have a look at that on docs.microsoft.com. Quite a detailed description of how that would actually work. Cool. So here comes the fun part. Now I'm going to quickly just squish back. So when it comes to AI Builder, it's not packaged as part of any of the licensing you get out of the box. It's not seeded as part of Dynamics. It's not part of an E5. It is an add-on to the capabilities. The licensing costs I've got on screen now, big disclaimer, red flags. This is New Zealand-based dollar rates, and it's at the date of this demo. So if it changes tomorrow, please, if you are looking at the rate that you'll be charged, your cost, please look in your own country's rates and make sure you have the up-to-date. And if worst case scenario, just contact your Microsoft rep or your service partner. So AI Builder is licensed based on a concept of you buy a unit. So you buy a single unit of single unit license. In New Zealand, it'll cost you $756 per unit per month. Inside that unit, you get 1 million service credits. The service credits are pooled at a tenant level. So you can buy one AI Builder license. You can add on, so you can decide that depending on how many service credits you expect to use, you can say, fine, I'm going to buy 10 of these, I'm going to buy 5 of these, and they'll each give you 1 million service credits at a time. And those are then pooled at your tenant level, and whatever AI models you build will then start using those credits when they're used. How do you know how many credits you need? That would be the first question that would pop to mind if you've heard about this idea, because when unit service credits, it's a little bit weird already. Luckily, Microsoft have taken care of that, and they provide an AI Builder calculator to estimate the costs. The idea behind the calculator, and I'll run a quick video in the background while I'm chatting, is for you to be able to go and predict what type of usage you would have, and the model then give you a sense of how many units you would need to buy. And it can be a combination of, I want to recognize images, I want to recognize text, I want to do invoice processing, do forms recognition. It doesn't matter, you can mix and match. And what this will do is run you through and give you that costing. So I did a little video earlier, you didn't actually jump out of too many screens. As you run through the model, it'll basically show you the different types of capabilities that are available. You can then type in what you think you'll need. Do a calculation, it will tell you how many units you require to do that. And you can basically change it and we'll push up. You can mix and match as well. So you can clear, you can choose, say for instance, business cards, how many business cards you're processing, how many images you're going to process. Put it all together, and once again, you'll get the model back. That will basically give you an idea, the sense of how many units you would need for the month. Quick one on this, something to be aware of. The calculator only spits out you'll see whatever it was it $500. It only spits out a value in US dollars, so USD. So whatever that is, you need to convert it. So once again, check with your local Microsoft representative or have a talk to your services partner and say, what is the actual licensing cost for what am I going to pay per unit in the currency that my tenant lives in. I have dropped a link in the slide to where that calculator is, and once again, you can literally just open up the search engine of your choice and type in AI Builder Capacity Calculator, and you'll pick that up. Cool. So from starting up, we're going to make sure you know what you're actually going to be using the AI Builder capability for, and let's see what that actually is. So let's do a bit of an AI Builder demo. We're good from a timing point of view, so we can take our time, and if there's any questions, feel free to pop them in the window. Cool. So AI Builder is, to get up AI Builder, is make.powerapps.com. We'll keep it nice and simple and do it nice and fresh. On the left-hand side, you will have an AI Builder link, and I built a couple of models already, so we'll keep it quite simple. I'm going to switch over to my demo environment. And if I go to build, the first screen is basically going to be the one that is a great starting point. This is to show you all the model, so all the AI capabilities that are available to you. I'm not going to go through all of them. I mean, you guys are more than happy to run through them in your own time. The one that we're going to focus on today is forms processing, to actually look at how we can do forms processing. These are very simple click and start interfaces. We'll do one in a moment. And then what they've also done is they've pre-packaged some AI Builders capabilities that is regularly used. One of them is invoice processing. So invoice processing is a big thing. If every single company has to have some sort of has invoices coming in and out. So instead of you having to go and train the systems using the forms processor how to recognize invoices, Microsoft looked and said, well, you know what, we know inside the invoice there's typically an invoice number, date, total, subtotal, tax, etc. Let's go and make one for you. So they pre-built the invoice processing AI model. You'll see no matter where I go to, when you click on these, it'll bring up and tell you what to do to get started. Typically, there's a tryout option, so it shows you, right, these are a couple of forms that I've got where I've processed and I've identified things like vendor name, and I've identified the date. So it tells you that it's basically got all these in place, and it's found that if you want to see if this model is going to work for you, you can very easily just go and upload your say your own invoice and have a look and see, does it actually find the stuff I want to find? And if there's a good match to use it, then it's a matter of just saying, fine, I'm happy with this. Let's give it a moment to actually process. And let's see what it found. It found vendor name, it found address, it found invoice number, date, it found due date, it found amount. So it found all the information I wanted to, and also found the information inside a table structure. So I could literally just from here go say, use this in Flow, and go and create a Power Automate to process invoices either that have been uploaded into a document library or coming in by email or uploaded into Dataverse. So very, very quick start experience, some out-of-box capability. If I want to go a little bit more, this is how hardcore, and actually want to do a bit more configuration, I can use the Builder base. So in this case, forms processing, where it'll talk me through what I need to do, give me a few examples of what I can do, and it's going to give me some best practices on what to work. And then I'll go and create my model from scratch. And for today, we're actually going to use that as a base. I've created a few models for our session today. The one we'll use in the demo for production is going to be the invoice processing, just to give you an idea of what you can actually do when it comes to configuring this model. We'll use the demo one for now. So I'm going to discard the draft I created earlier. Again, a good TV chef, I did bake a fresh pie. Let's have a quick look. So this is an existing model. If I started my model from scratch, what it would do, especially, and this is specific to the forms processing one, it'll ask me, what do I want to extract from that form? So what are the fields that I'm expecting to extract? So in this, a little bit earlier, I created a few extraction entities, and this is what I wanted to pull through. What I'm missing there, if I have a look at one of my examples, so let's quickly take a PDF that know that I want to work with later. So let's have a look at that. I can see that there's a shipping total that I also want to extract, and I don't have shipping total here. So it's very simple. Just say add shipping total. Try and spell it properly. So I'm basically telling the model that one of the things I'm going to look for is something called shipping total, and that is a field. You'll see that I've also got a products table in here, so I can do table recognition as well. Hit next. In the model, especially in the forms processing, I can say, well, I get invoices from Contoso and from Vodafone and from Spark and from the warehouse. I have all these different types of invoices coming in. So I can create multiple collections. Just say if I have multiple customers, and I can define different attributes to those different models as well. We won't do that today. It's a bit of a longer demo. So for now, we've got a very simple model where we've added 5 documents to a company called Contoso. And what we want to do is we want to train want to use the AI tool and train it to identify Contoso invoices in the fields inside there. So let's click next and see what it gives us. It shows me that I've got 5 invoices already uploaded to train with, and it shows me that it's already picked up the retrained data for those fields, but shipping total is missing. To train it to recognize a shipping total, it's a matter of click, drag, that's it. Go next. And I repeat this on all 5 of my documents. We'll do this nice and quickly because it's quite simple. And once I've got those in play, I should be good to go. So why 5? The recommendation for forms processing is that you have at least 5 unique different documents that you send through the model to train so you can recognize. That's the minimum. Recommended is around about 15. So typically you want to have 15 different invoices from that specific company that you've got over a period of time. Upload them as either PDFs or Word documents or PNG files. PDF is by far the best. And then you put them into the model to actually train against that. For this demo, we'll use 5. And hit next quickly. Cool. It tells me that it's super happy. It's got all the fields I want. It's got 5 documents. And now I can hit train. We won't run through the whole training module. Depending on how many documents you've actually got, it can be quite a long process. If I've got 5 in play, we're probably looking anything from 5 to 10 minutes. If I've got 15, it could take a bit longer. And if I'm doing something like image recognition, it could be an even longer process. But basically what happens in the training model is it's going through those documents I've uploaded. It's gone through the fields. It's gone through my tags. And it's now trying to go and find it. So it's training the AI model specifically that I've built and said, hey, we're going to go and train ourselves to recognize this by going through these documents and trying to find these entities. And we're going to go and make sure that we can actually identify them. When it identifies it, and you'll see it when we do the demo, it looks at how certain it is that it's identified the right information. And what it does is actually gives you a score back and says, I found this field, like say, instance, invoice total, and I am 99% sure that it's right, or I'm 93% sure, or I'm 80% sure. And that 80%, 90% could be based off that the document might be a bit skewed when it was scanned in, or it's a faded total and can't read the difference between a 2 and a 5 or something. It could be as simple as that. But it actually gives you some sense of what it knows. This training ran quite quickly. Once I've got my training done, I can do a quick test, and I can go and take a few documents. Let's just say, let's take the one over there. Let's drag it in. And I can go and test against some documents that I have available and see, did it actually find the information? Was the model successful enough to actually detect the fields I specified, and is it accurate? And one thing we can click in, so we can see it picked up Fabricam, and then we can zoom in on that one. Picked up Fabricam, picked up my invoice number. You'll see the confidence level in green, all 99%, so it's quite happy with this document. It's got a overall confidence level is very, very high. So very happy. So that's it. It's in a obviously a bit of a pre-baked demo, but that's how you train the model. You give it data that you've got. You tell it what you're looking to find, what the output has to be. Let it train. You test it at nauseam to make sure it's good. And then once you've got it available, you can use it inside any application that supports the AI builder capability. So for the demo to show you how this actually works, I've got a a previous model I built for invoice processing. This one's the same as the other one. So we'll just quickly go and edit the draft so you can see what that looks like. Same concept, same fields, except I've got different document types, two different companies. But as for the rest, that's all the stock standard. So I needed to use this, and the scenario we came up here is that typically invoices come in via email. They get dropped off by a post. There could be something dropped into a shared folder. There's different mechanisms that we would get an invoice in through. So in our scenario, we said, well, we have a document library inside of SharePoint called invoices. We have whatever the system is. Maybe it's an email, maybe it's an upload from a customer. It doesn't really matter. And whatever we drop into this invoices document library, we want the AI model to recognize, pull the data out, and then add and go and put all the data into a SharePoint list called invoices received. I'm using SharePoint in this scenario because it's very simple and easy and quick, but it could be any ERP system. So you can be pushing this into F&O, Dynamics, Salesforce. It doesn't really matter. Let's look at how we achieve that. So we're going to use Microsoft. We can use Power Automate to do the AI processing. I won't go through too much of a rabbit hole on the whole thing, but let's quickly look at what we can get out of Power Automate and how it would actually work for us. So very simple Power Automate, not too complex. When an item's dropped in the folder, get the file properties and content, very generic. Then I'm going to call the AI model. So the AI model is saying it'll ask you what model. It'll ask me what model I want to actually work against. I've only got two working. It'll tell me what format the document is, and I'll get the file content from the SharePoint library. The processing model, or the document type could be something you look up as a variable. So you could actually go and get the document type first when it gets uploaded to the library, see if it's a PDF, PNG, have it as a variable and pass that through, and then it will change. It's all good to go. Before we step through, let's have a quick look at what I can actually do with the AI builder. So let's have a look at what that actually gives me. Cool. So these are all the actions available to me. So I can analyze positive content in text, classify, I can do object detection. In this case, we're using information from forms. There's the invoice processing, receipts processing, a whole bunch of everything that's available through the AI Builder model of there is available inside of Power Automate. So I can use these as part of my business process. I'm going to click that out for now. What I am doing is I want to make sure that once I've run the document against the model, I want to make sure that I actually identify documents where the confidence of the document confidence is actually higher than a certain amount. So because I'm getting a whole bunch of data out, and let's have a look at what I'm actually getting from the AI Builder. Let's do user compose because it's nice and easy. I get a lot of information from that entity extract. So it actually gets the information I'm getting from that form is the product table. I'm getting date. I'm getting the customer ID value from the customer ID that I pull through, data type, display name. I'm getting a total value, so the value of that total I'm extracting, customer name value. Then, quite importantly, I'm getting things like collection names. So it's telling me, was it Contoso or was it Fabricam? So I can actually start identifying the customer. So based on that, I can go and maybe do the insert into a different customer table. It also starts giving me things like date confidence score, customer ID confidence score, total confidence score. So it tells me it gives me the confidence score of what is detected. So I can use something like total confidence score. In this case, I'm using the confidence score for the whole collection. And I can say if the confidence score for total is below 90%, so I'm not sure if the total's right or if the invoice number's right, then do something else with it. In this case, we're going to say somebody else needs to handle it. Also, because I'm getting this data available, I can use this to do lookups. So at this stage, I can go and get the invoice number and then go look up against my ERP system, get that data out, extract the company data, extract the expected invoice totals I'm expecting, extract a bill of goods that I want to have, match that against the table, and I can start building logic into this flow before I push it through into my line of business system. And that's where the real power comes in. We have to automate the typical things that we would normally do manually or by eye, and having this built into part of Power Automate. So I'm going to just remove that compose. All we've done for this one is we've got a bit of condition that looks to see if the collection confidence was above 0.961%, and if it wasn't, we're going to update the SharePoint record with a little red flag. If it was, we used to make it a green flag. So keeping it quite simple. So let's see that in action. This is where they say the magic happens. So we've got our SharePoint document library. What we're going to do is we're going to take these, I think there's 11 PDFs, and just drop them into that document library. Let that run in the background. Now, if you have ever worked with invoice processing, you spoke to somebody that does invoice processing, it's a pain in the butt, because you receive the invoice, you need to validate that all the customer details are correct, you need to validate the invoice numbers correct, you need to go look up the customer in your line of business system to make sure they actually are a customer. You then need to look at every single item that is listed and make sure that it's actually stuff that's been delivered or was to be delivered. You then need to go make sure that it actually matches up. So do the math. Go look at every single line item inside the table, make sure the one item times item amount is correct. Look at the subtotals are correct. Make sure the tax is correct. There's quite a lot of work done manually to typically process one invoice. When we did a bit of survey of the customers around this, anything from 5 to 10 minutes per invoice, but the average was around about 10 minutes to manually process the invoice. As you can see, AI process has been clicked. So inside of SharePoint, all the documents have just been marked as run through. If I go to the processing model, you'll see they all ran. I've got one failed, that's fine, I know what that is. I can see they ran. Let's have a look at the runtime on this. So we had one that started 45 seconds at 03:25 to 03:26. So in 1 minute, we were able to process 11 invoices. Let's have a look at what those invoices look like. They've been dropped into the SharePoint list. My model count is in. I've got a nice little highlighting telling me that that is below 93.1%, and I've got an operator action required, which could be an outbound log, which could be a task log saying, hey, there's an invoice that we're not pushing to the ERP system. You need to go manually process that. So I know people all in the room together, you guys will be clapping hands now and ululating because it's such an amazing thing we did. So let's actually look at what we actually did. What did we actually achieve by using the AI builder as part of that process versus manual? As mentioned, typically to manually process one invoice, 10 minutes or 6 an hour. That's sort of the average that our customers are telling us. 500 invoices a month, that's 83 hours, 2 weeks of a person's time per month to process 500 invoices. At assuming the person gets a $20 per hour rate, that's $1,600 per month. And well, let's be realistic. If you're doing this type of work, that is not what you've been paid. You've been paid a lot more. So at a worst case scenario, for a best case scenario for those 500 invoices process, we're looking at $1.60 per month. More importantly, we've got 2 weeks of people time allocated to making sure an invoice is correct. Using the simple model we had now with some basic processing, if we had to translate that, we were able to process 10 invoices in 1 minute, actually. I've been a little bit naughty saying 2 minutes. Okay. Or if you took a look at it per hour, there's 300 to 600 invoices we could do an hour. 500 invoices a month at 2 minutes, that's 1.5 hours. So we've taken the invoice processing time as somebody would have to done manually from 2 weeks down to 1.5 hours a month for a cost of $756. Not a bad return on investment when you think what you do. So back to why looking at the AI builder capability as part of your bigger Power Platform solutions is so key, is it has a massive upside, not only from the fact that you can automate so many of these processes that are mundane and very time consuming, but for the minimal cost of actually having those licenses, even if we double the units that we bought 2 units, we're still looking at least a break even in costs for employees, but we're still giving somebody back 2 weeks of their month to actually do other work, which effectively makes them more productive and makes the company money. So really, really good all-round win scenario. And like I said, employee gets 2 weeks back. That is the key. For modern work, we're trying to ensure that the employee is being productive doing the work we're employed to do, not doing arbitrary stuff. That's why we automate. Cool. Moving on, let's have a quick look at what we can do with Power Virtual Agent. I'm going to quickly just check to see if there's any questions in the Q&A section. There are not. Thank you, Jean, for dropping that link. And yep, we're good to go. Cool. So let's segue. What can we do? What can Power Virtual Agent do, or PVA do? PVA is basically a bot builder. So let's have a quick run through what that does, where it fits into our world. So it's a no-code bot builder. That's fundamentally what it does. It's a drop and drag conversational bot builder. We'll have a look at the interface when we do the demo. But effectively, I go and sit down and plan how I want a customer to interact with the bot. What type of questions the customer would ask, what type of responses they would expect from me. I map that out, great whiteboarding activity, and I go to my no-code bot and I basically drop and drag the conversational pieces in and the functional pieces, hook them up, and then I have a bot that I can publish out, and we'll talk about the different publishing areas. So a really quick way to get bot capabilities available for your organization and push that through to employees as well as customers in the outside world. If you are a bit more advanced bot builder and you're really using the Microsoft Bot Framework, this integrating the Bot Framework, this is very much like Power Automate. You can say, take my Power Automate to Azure Functions. If you start inside of the inside of PVA and you've got your framework built, you can then say, right, actually open this up in Bot Framework, and it'll basically have a native experience. It'll take everything you've done, take it into the Bot Framework Composer, and you can work in the Composer instead of working in the no-code UI that comes out of the box. This is a bit of a weird thing to say, but can be deployed as part of a solution. We know that if we should deploy everything as part of a solution, but the reason why this there is every topic or everything that the bot does, all the questions that it asks and the logic around that, they call it topics, and we'll talk about that a bit, is stored inside of a solution, is stored as tables inside of Dataverse. So you cannot run PVA without having Dataverse in place. Let's rephrase it. PVA will require Dataverse. How it gets to Dataverse is a discussion we'll have when we look at the licensing and where that kicks in. But basically, if you are building a solution and part of the solution is to have the bot, you don't need to have a separate deployment model for it. Make it part of your normal solution pack. You'll see this is a new solution builder look and feel, and your bot will migrate across from environment to environment and use any things like environmental variables that you've set up. There are really cool authentication options, and this little piece over here a couple of months ago was a bit of a pain for us if you were building PVA, because you didn't really have integration into Microsoft Teams. There was a no authentication model. So basically, you can deploy the bot and anybody can use it. And if you wanted to get authenticated user details, you had to go and configure AAD and an OAuth identity provider, even if you're deploying into something like Teams. So recently, the only for Teams authentication has been added as well. So there's native integration to Microsoft Teams. That'll be part of the demo we're going to run through later. So if you are looking at building bots that are for internal use inside your organization, you can literally go and say, authenticate this for Teams only, push it through, and there's no need to go and configure an identity provider. Really, really, really cool, because it was a bit of a mission in the previous version of it. It provides really good analytics, and analytics is incredibly key. So you might look at analytics and say, well, yeah, of course it does analytics. Everything does analytics. What's key with the bot is basically there to engage in a conversation. So one of the things you want to make sure your bot does is actually get the conversation right. I want to know what people are asking. I want to know if people are actually having the bot take them through the conversation down to a resolution point. I'd like to know what conversations or what topics are highly rated, or which ones are being used the most, what trigger phases is my bot receiving that it's actually responding to. So typically, we'll have a look at one of those in a bit, but hey, if there's somebody says, hi, is my bot knowing what to talk? If someone says, give me my account details, does the bot know what to do next? So the analytics is incredibly important in this context. Another thing it does with analytics as well is tell you your billing. And we'll talk about the billing in the next slide. So really good analytics, and we'll try and look at that if we have time today. And then the really, really cool stuff, the channels you can publish your bot to. So a bit of a wonky screenshot, so let's zoom in a bit. Once you've got your bot built, you can publish it to any of these channels that currently exist. So Teams, you can publish it to a website, mobile application, Facebook. You guys can read the screen. You can even publish it to Cortana, so you can actually have the bot embedded as part of the Cortana experience. You can see from the different types of channels you can publish to, that some of them would definitely be authenticated, like Microsoft Teams and Cortana, but with Facebook, you won't necessarily want to have on your website authentication, but you could and then have the OAuth provider configured in the background. So multiple channels to actually push your bot out to. There's a session after this that I'll talk a little bit about that will talk to some of those and what you can and can't do. Right, fun part. How's it licensed? Once again, big banner going up. This is in New Zealand dollars, and this is based on the time of presentation. Once again, if you can use PVA, please go and check with your Microsoft rep or your service provider and make sure that the pricing is matched. And if there's any weird discounts or weird things you get, have that conversation with them. This is the commercial pricing as of today. So the way PVA is licensed is you basically pay per session. So a session you pay per month for 2,000 sessions. In NZD, it's $1,500 give or take for the 2,000 sessions. And what a session is sort of outlined over there. The session begins when a user topic is triggered, and we'll talk about topics afterwards. But basically, if I have a topic on get my account details, so an account topic that I'm ready to do, as soon as a person triggers that topic and the conversation starts, that is regarded as a session. The session lasts until the questions are answered, or it reaches 60 minutes, which hopefully it shouldn't because it's not supposed to, or once you have 100 turns. And what I mean by 100 turns is if I ask a question and the bot asks me a question back, that's a turn. So once I reach 100 turns, there's a cap and says, right, your session is now complete. It doesn't matter if you carry on longer. If for whatever reason you run out, you can add it. You can top us up. Basically, drop it in and say, "Fine, I'd like to buy additional sessions." So you can buy more sessions along the way. One of the things that you want to do when it comes to your bot analytics is, and why analytics is so important is, once you've got your bot launched, say in the beta phase or in the trial phase, you want to make sure you're optimizing the way the bot retrieves information and responds to keep those sessions down, to keep the questions answered nice and quickly, so you don't have this hectic loop where the person potentially asks a question, goes out and asks it again, and you have a new session started. That's not really what you want to have doing. Cool. So why Dataverse? So what you get for that $1,500 plus is you get your 2,000 sessions per month. It's pooled. You also get the use of Dataverse. So you get 10 gigs capacity and 20 gigs file capacity. So if you do not have Dataverse in play at the moment, it's not part of your licensing, and you decide to use PVA, Dataverse will be provisioned for PVA specifically. And that's key to understand, it's for PVA specifically. You don't get any discounts if you really have Dataverse in play. It's part and parcel. So that's there. So make sure it's aware of it. Enable your bot to take actions. You'll see that in the demo that when the bot needs to do things like logic and actually go and find information, like you just say, for instance, you take the example we use where I'm doing an account checkup and I say, hey, what's my account balance, or how much leave do I have left? I need to call my line of business system. You use Flow for that or Power Automate for that. So that requires a use license of Power Automate. So the cost per month includes all that capability. Cool. Let's have a quick look at what that is all about. So I'm going to do a demo of PVA. I'm going to keep the demo reasonably light, and the reason why is at 4 o'clock after my session, the lovely Roshana is going to be doing a deep dive on Power Virtual Agent. So she's going to be running through in detail all the stuff that I'm doing a light touch on, going through topics. She'll do the demo to look at what variables the entities are and how everything works. And she'll be actually doing a demo of the bot itself. So I'll be doing a bit of a bot demo as well, but in specific context. I would highly recommend, if you want to really have that deep dive experience around everything, which would take an hour, hang around for Roshana's section afterwards. Cool. So let's quickly have a look at what we've got from a bot point of view. So what I'm building at the moment, we're actually busy with a project for one of my clients, and what we're building for them is a normal app. This is the pre-beta version. One of the clients is doing rapid antigen testing with their staff, and they wanted the ability to have rapid antigen testing tracking. So we've built this is not by any means the final version. This was the early prototype. We built a rapid antigen testing tracker, a typical Canvas app, and I can go into the app, say I'm going to add a rat test, and I can go through the normal process of saying, well, I'm doing a test for this person, and was administered there. That's the date I administered on. The result was positive, or whoops, that's horrible. Let's make it negative rather. I can do things like scan the test code unit to get the barcode off. There's a bit of a process that we run with them. We'll keep it quite simple, and you push the button and off it goes into the backend somewhere. So this was the first experience. You had to have the app installed. One thing the client came back to us and said, well, is there another way that we can ask the same questions, but in different channels? And we thought, well, maybe a bot would be quite a good idea to do this. So let's have a quick look at what that bot looks like and how it works. And we'll quickly bring up the antigen tests SharePoint list. So for the purposes of today's demo, I'm using SharePoint as my backend. This is actually a Dataverse solution that we built. So the final version actually is Dataverse. We effectively got a very simple SharePoint backend where we're adding anything that comes from that Power App. So we wanted to have a bot that actually had a conversation with the person uploading the content. And that's where we built our COVID tracker bot. To get to bots, makethepowerapps.com, left-hand side bots, there's 2 links. One is Create, which will give you a bit of a run through of what you need to do. There's a quick start, information on publishing, read this bot, improve the analytics. It's a great document. There's not really much in play when it comes to this is a pre-built bot for this scenario. That's fine. I've built my bot ready, so just a quick click into it. I think I've switched on to not dark mode, so it should be quite a decent experience. As I said, you're going to get a good run through on Rishana from how this all works in detail and where it fits in. So I'm going to give you like a light touch and just show you how bot works. So Rishana will cover things, what topics and entities and all this type of things are. But effectively, a topic is the conversation topic your bot is going to engage with. Everything you see here, with the exception of New Zealand greetings and COVID antigen record, are predefined topics that you have access to. So Microsoft once again has come to the party and said, this is what we expect a bot will do. It'll do things like greet you. It'll do things like end a conversation. It'll say goodbye. It'll ask you to start over. So it creates these whole bunch of predefined topics. What we wanted to do was actually have our bot talk through to somebody and say, hey, give me the information that I need that shows you've done the antigen test. We also wanted to make sure that it was a bit more the default greetings topic is quite generic, and it's really much doesn't really account for New Zealand language choices. So we thought, hey, let's actually add a New Zealand greetings area, and we were able to configure our own greeting scenarios as well in Taleo. So inside, once we knew what we would do, we think we could create a topic that I would basically give our bot a topic, which is the antigen test topic, and say, hey, bot, you are going to be asked about adding antigen test results. So we created a new topic called the Create and COVID Antigen Tech Record. First thing you do, and like I said, Rishana will cover this, I'm going to go through it quickly. You tell the bot what questions it can expect. They call it trigger phrases. When somebody says this, then this is when we expect you to go and start this conversation. You can also start the conversation by leading to it through another process, and I think Rishana will probably cover that in a bit more detail. So if anybody asks any of these questions or types any of this into the bot, it'll know to actually start this conversation. Once the conversation started, we go to the authoring canvas, and the authoring canvas is where you basically build the conversation that the bot's going to have. It can get a bit lengthy, so basically I'm saying, I'll quickly run through this. So I'm saying when any of these trigger phrases have been triggered, I want you to do certain things. The first thing I'm doing here is I want to get the name of the person, because I know it's going to be in Teams. So what I do is I'm calling an action. We'll look at that in a second. That goes and gets the person's details by calling a Power Automate workflow that does the lookup. And then I can start doing things like adding messages to my bot. So my bot will say, hi, Troy. And then I can start building up my questions that my bots can ask. I'm going to start thinking of how the conversation is going to engage. Like, do you want to capture new engine test? Yes or no? Depending on the answer, yes or no, I can start dropping and dragging and basically start building up my conversation. It can get quite lengthy because, hey, a conversation is a conversation. You can zoom in and zoom out of the actual list so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Not very cool. One of the things that I'm really hoping one day is that Microsoft come with a really cool print feature. You can recenter. You can also go into a bit of a mini map that you just sort of drag to where your bot capabilities are, and you can look at your variables. So I won't talk about that. I know Roshan is doing that in more detail. Just to give you an idea of what you can do with the bot in a very light touch again, we'll cover in the next session. At any stage in my bot, so here I'm getting my question answered, I've got my action. If I want to do something like add a message or ask a question or call a business process, literally mouse over the node line, click on the plus button, and this is what the things I can do. I can ask a question. Questions like, what's your name? Which city are you in? And these use something called entities, which Roshan will cover once again in more detail. I can add conditions. So based on the answer, do something else. That's what we're using over here. So the condition of the response. I can call an action, and this is where I get to call Power Automate. So I can actually go and say, hey, what actions are available to me? These actions are available to me already because they've been pre-built by me. So one of the things I can do here is I can go, I've got a PVA to get weather. I like to prefix my Power Automate with PVA so I know where I can use them. So I've got to get weather, it's going to use Bing Weather. I've got to get my profile details that will go and get a Office 365 users. I can look up user details using email address. So that's another Power Automate. And here's a Power Automate that's going to hit that's going to add details to a SharePoint list. So as soon as your bot needs to talk to line of business system, that's where you use this. And you can also create directly from here, which is really cool. As soon as you create from here, it'll open Power Automate. You can build your Power Automate. As soon as you shut it, the action's available. You don't have to go and reload your bot and move on. And then we have a couple other options, show message and redirect to another topic. This is where if I've finished something, I can then say, fine, I'm done. Move to the thank you part. So I think we've got it good. So for what we did for this bot, and I'm going to quickly run through, is we basically can test the bot here as well. Roshan will cover that. We've built the bot, and we are specifically told the bot that it's going to use security for Teams. Sorry, details quickly, channels. We've told it's going to work in Microsoft Teams. You'll see at the moment all the rest are grayed out because I've specified that. I've published it to 2 teams from the bot building tool, which is really cool. So from here, I can say publish to teams and we'll publish 2 machines to a channel. It'll be available to me only. You can take the bot, export it, and then import it as a app into Teams and make it available through your Teams app store or pushed out to everybody. So it's just there. So let's have a look. Let's see if this bot actually works. So we've got our SharePoint list in the background where we are storing our tests, typically via app. We've built a bot. I'm not going to do the test on the bot. I'm just going to move straight out and move into Teams. Let's fire up Teams on this side. On the left-hand side, I've got my COVID test bot pinned. Let's click into it. Been testing, obviously, for a bit. And now I can start my conversation. So I can go, kia ora, and it's going to pop up. And hopefully the bot will chat to me and won't break. So far, we haven't, we've teased the demo gods a bit today. There we go. So it's kia ora, Troy. I'm a virtual agent. Can I help you log in RAT test results? Is that what you want to do? So it's ask me a question. So let's have a conversation. Absolutely. I definitely want to do that. Yes. Bot is speaking up. This is great. It says, once again, hi, Troy. How do you pick at that? Do you want to capture an new antigen test result? So what it's done here is it switched from the topic of greeting to the topic of capture results, and it's just reconfirming that I actually want to do an antigen test result. So I'm going to say yes. It should be nice and bright. It says, cool, let's get some details. It's a very cool bot. It says, who did you test? I need the email address. So we'll use, let's use me for make it easier. You could have gone down and created a Power Automate that did lookups by name. So typed in Troy and would have gone back and pulled out and said, these are the 3 Troys I have, which one do you want to use? Could have done that, but I sort of kept it quite simple for this demo. So it says, hey, cool, Troy Gerber at Fusion 5, that's good. Okay, let me make sure I have the details, and it goes and crashes. Well, we did say that we haven't sacrificed anything to the demo guys today and things could go wrong. Let's try and do that one again. So let's go back and say hi and see if we can get it restarted. Actually, I think what we'll do is just bring back, we'll just run it in the test, the bot test over here. It'll be easier to run. It'll also give us an idea of where things go wrong. Cool. So what I'm running, one of the things you can do with your bot is actually run through a test phase. And if you leave the tracker on, it'll actually show you where it's hitting. So let's do that. What did you test? Let's try again, see if we'll get it right this time. Hopefully that works. Awesome. That worked that time. It says I got your details. So it pulls that through. It pulled that by doing a lookup. Is it right? Yes, absolutely. So it's asking questions. Asked you where did the test happen? It happened in Auckland. Was it negative or positive? It was a negative test. Good. That's good news. Nice conversation. I need the batch number for the test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Give it the batch number. Comes back and now I'm doing confirmation. This is what I found out. Is this correct? Absolutely yes. Done. Hits Power Automate, does the publish, gives me the SharePoint list ID back. Do I want to add another one? I can say yes. I'll say add another one and it'll go back into the loop and I can zoom out. Let's have a look at the SharePoint list to make sure it actually appeared there and it wasn't all smoke and mirrors. But yep, there we go. Added with all the details inside there. So let's go back to where we were. Once again, if we were in a room, I'm sure you guys would be all clapping hands and ululating and be happy and passing down beers, but we're not. What we got right, so what it's done, what the bot does, it gives us an additional channel to market. So if you want to take something very basic, your channel to market could be for internal staff, it can be for employees. You actually have now the ability to actually go and have that conversation. It frees up an agent. Somebody doesn't have to log a call to do a password reset. Somebody doesn't log a call to check what their leave balance is. It's also a tool you can take to Teams now. So very cool way of actually having our team. So one of the things we've done in Fusion 5 with bot, we have a bot called FuseBot. You can do a couple of things with FuseBot. One of the things that is really cool is you can nominate people for self-award. So if you think somebody did a great job, you go to FuseBot to say, hi, and FuseBot comes back and says, sure, what do you want to do? I say, nominate. It says, woo. I say, Nathan Mossman. It says, cool, what did you do? I type it in, it goes, thanks, and it drops it into our nice little backend. And it's used as part of our end of the month Employee of the Month Awards recognition program. We also then email his manager. You tell Nathan, Troy thought he was great. So it becomes quite a nice little cool thing. And people are really working inside of teams. And that's the big thing. People really are in teams. So instead of having to jump out of teams to do something, I can just use a bot framework to do that, or potentially a Power App. Modernize the way we interact. Can be used for IT help desk, HR lead balances, staff appreciation, customer details, and all the fun stuff. So a lot of different scenarios. So I hope that has been quite informative. So the message is, if you are building solutions, don't discount AI Builder, don't discount things like the Bot Builder, the barrier to entry, which is typically I don't have a premium license for it. If you look at the type of costs, and the invoice processing module is probably the best example. To be able to do something that takes people 2 weeks in 1.5 minutes and give 2 weeks of productivity back to employees is worth $768 a month at any given business right now. So once you know what you want to do and you can actually calculate the ROI, which is easy using things like the calculator, you can actually go back to the business and very easy justify using something like the bot framework or using AI Builder to enhance your solutions that you're building in Power Platform. That is my story for the day. I'm going to stop presenting. I'll go into mode. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions. There are not. You guys are very quiet. Awesome. I think we had quite a decent good turnout. So thank you for hanging around on the first part of the graveyard session. Hang around for Roshana's session. It is a really deep dive into PVA and really, really great content in that. I highly recommend it. We've got 5 minutes left. Any questions before I log off and get back to Lynn? Awesome. Great, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday afternoon, no matter where you are. And if you're in Auckland, the sun's still not come out, so it's still raining. So stay at home. And kia ora, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, Troy. It's a really great session.